what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, I think this is a really cool story. Samson Dauda is taking Quint Beastwood under his wing, and it looks like Quint is going to be staying there with Samson for the next 3 weeks until the Italy Pro, where Quinton is going to be trying to get his Olympia qualification after a near miss at the Tampa Pro, after another near miss at the Texas Pro. And despite not winning either of those shows, I think we saw the best Quinton that we've ever seen this year. And I got to say, man, the more stuff that I see from Samson like this, the more I like him. And the more I think he's a really good ambassador for the Olympia title. I mean, we talk a lot about Samson doing all these appearances. He does all these guest posings. He travels a lot to meet all the fans. And I think that's something that a lot of fans have realized we've taken for granted with a Mr. Olympia champ that's willing to go to all these different places and meet all the fans from all these different countries, and Samson has done that. But doing something like this, I think, is like the ultimate ambassador move for bodybuilding. Taking a guy like Quinton under your wing, a guy that a lot of people feel could be the future of bodybuilding. I mean, you look at the guy's structure, you look at his genetics. I think everybody agrees he's got great genetics for bodybuilding. He's got a very aesthetically pleasing structure, a lot of size, very imposing on stage, a lot of comparisons made actually to Samson Dauda specifically. And there's definitely a lot of similarities between their physiques. So I think that Samson being willing to take Quint under his wing like this says a lot about Samson and what he's willing to do for the sport of bodybuilding. I think it's really impressive, and I think it's really cool. And speaking of Quinton, this is the latest physique update from Quinton. And this update would be at 3.5 weeks out, but I think one of the really cool things for Quinton about this opportunity to be there with Samson is Quinton said about Texas and Tampa, he didn't have a coach, he was coaching himself, and that what he was kind of doing was just showing progress pictures and physique updates to his friends that also compete and asking them for advice. What would they do here? What would they change? What would they tweak? And I feel like if Samson is going to be willing to do that for Quinton, which it seems like they are, they're training together. I'm sure he's going to be giving Quinton advice. I mean, what better person could you get advice from prepping for a show than the reigning Mr. Olympia? So I think that this is going to be tremendously beneficial for Quinton. And I think on top of that, just the fact that he's already over there in Europe with Samson this far in advance, and I'm assuming, I don't know this for a fact, but it kind of looks like Samson might have offered to let Quinton stay with him essentially for free, which I would assume would take quite a bit of financial burden off of Quinton and get him acclimated to being in Europe ahead of time, giving him a little bit of an advantage, because this Italy show seems like it's going to be a pretty decent lineup. Another one that I don't think is going to be an easy win for anybody. It looks like Sergio is doing it. Quinton is doing it. It looks like that might also be where Stefan Matala is making his open debut. Mark Hector is doing it. I believe Lewis Breed is also doing it. And I mean, as you look at these physique updates from Quint Beastwood, look at this front lat spread here. I love his front double bicep too, but look at the front lat. Like, this is one of the reasons why in both of those shows, Texas and Tampa, I said that Quinton has my favorite physique in that lineup, even if he's not the most conditioned guy. Just look at the shape and the structure that Quinton has, especially in those front shots, the crazy taper. He just looks insane. And I want to see more of these type of physiques make it to the Olympia stage. These taller, and it doesn't necessarily have to be taller, but these like aesthetically pleasing, imposing guys. I said I kind of put Quinton in that category with Samson, with Andrew Jack. Tall, aesthetic, big, imposing. These are the type of guys that I think a lot of people want to see on the Olympia stage. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about Samson taking Quinton under his wing. I think it's really cool. What do you think it's going to do for Quinton? Do you think it's going to give him an edge? Do you think he's going to be able to qualify for the 2025 Mr. Olympia at one of these, either Italy or Germany shows? Now, next up in the news, speaking of the Olympian lineup, we are officially 8 weeks out now from the 2025 Mr. Olympia. We've got several physique updates from several of the top Olympians, Hadi Choopan included. So Hadi Choopan posted this update with the caption, "The road is under repair. Drive carefully. There's a risk of overturning. Be careful on the road. 60%. Now, I think the question still remains whether or not Hadi is going to be able to get here to compete in the Olympia. I saw recently that Hani Rambod said he was going to be giving an update on Hadi here soon. And I'm assuming that even though Hani has given up coaching, he's still helping facilitate the process of Hadi getting here to compete. Because Hadi is still an Evogen athlete. And I am curious because that's one thing that I think we haven't really talked about a lot is the fact that Hani Rambod is no longer coaching. So if he's really not coaching Hadi, this will be the first year in how many years that Hadi has not been coached by Hani. And how will that impact his physique? Now, I don't know to what extent they might still be working together if Hadi is still, sending physique updates or whatever to Hani, and maybe Hani's still giving him, some degree of guidance. But I don't think we've really talked much about the fact that Hani did technically officially retire from coaching, and how will that impact Hadi's physique going forward. But I think even furthermore, talking about the Olympia predictions and all that, a lot of people talking about Nick Walker and Derek Lunsford. Hadi Choopan was the runner-up last year. Hadi Choopan has not been in any of these shows that we've been talking about, whether it be Pittsburgh or the Arnold. Hadi, I think, is probably a bigger threat to win the Olympia title than either Derek or Nick. You look at this update, you see no signs of Hadi slowing down when it comes to bringing that consistent conditioning. He looks just as peeled as ever at 8 weeks out, probably more peeled, well, definitely more peeled, I would say, than either Derek or Nick in the physique updates that we've seen from them. And we did get a series of updates from Nick today as well at 8 weeks out. So we're really getting into crunch time here going into the Olympia. And I would say if you looked at that update from Hadi, he was mostly posing from the back. He hit him most muscular. And what I mean when I say he's ahead of both Derek and Nick, look at the detail in Nick's chest. Look at the detail in Nick's back. You could see a lot more, in my opinion, detail in Hadi's physique than you're seeing from Nick, certainly than what we saw from Derek the other day. But detail aside, I look at that back double bicep from Nick after looking at Hadi's back double bicep. To be honest, if you're just talking about that pose, I think Nick absolutely smokes Hadi in the back double bicep pose. I think Nick's back double bicep is legitimately one of the best in the league. And in my opinion, Derek, that has been his strong suit, the back poses. Everybody always says nobody beats Derek from the back. I still think at that Pittsburgh Pro, at least in the back double bicep, I think that Nick had Derek beat in that back pose, which is something you don't typically talk about when it comes to Derek, is somebody beating him in either one of those shots. But I think Nick had him beat in the back double. And I think comparing Nick to Hadi, even though Hadi seems to be slightly ahead conditioning-wise, when you're talking about that back double, man, I think Nick smokes him. Now, next up in the news, we've also gotten a bunch of recent physique updates from Ramon Dino lately. Pictures, videos, the whole 9 yards. And Ramon looks, to me, to be bigger than ever. Now, this has always kind of been a conversation with Ramon going into the Olympia. He will announce whatever his body weight was. I don't know if any of these updates, I don't think on any of them he said what he's weighing, but typically going into the Olympia, he's way, way above the classic physique weight limit. So it's always kind of a conversation of how's he going to make weight, how's he going to impact, how is that going to impact his physique? And man, I do wonder, looking at his physique here, he's lean, he's hard, but he's huge. I was talking to someone earlier, another classic physique competitor who I'm not going to name, but he said the same thing I was thinking, is Ramon looks as big, if not bigger, than some of the open guys at this point in their Olympia prep. It is like a mystery how this guy is able to make weight, and I do think this is a really, really good look for Ramon. And there's even been talk in the past about him switching to open bodybuilding, but man, like I said before, I think that this classic physique title is going to be one of the most interesting classic physique battles that we've seen in a very long time. The first classic physique Olympia in Ramon's career that'll be in the absence of Chris Bumstead. And look, I think that's significant. I think that Ramon is still legitimately in this conversation. I know a lot of people have written him off after last year's Olympia. I think the fact that he slipped in placings last year was simply due to the fact that he's off. His conditioning was off. I don't think it had anything to do with the standard changing, what the judges were looking for changing. I still think Ramon has that type of physique where he was battling Chris and he was runner-up at the Olympia. I still think he's there, if not better. It's just a matter of if he's on or not. If he's on, I think he's still right in that conversation for potentially winning the first Classic Physique Olympia title after Chris Bumstead. On paper, it's Mike Sommerfeld. Mike Sommerfeld was runner-up last year. He just won the Arnold Classic. And, of course, we did not have Ramon compete at the Arnold Classic, so we don't know how he would have done. But I still think at this point, the next Classic Physique Olympia title win could be any of these guys. I don't think there's any, foredrawn conclusions to be made just off of on paper who's the favorite right now. I think the Classic Physique Olympia is going to be highly competitive, and Ramon is still 100% in there as a possible winner. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think of Ramon's look here? What do you think of Ramon's odds at the Olympia? What is your pick? Who is your pick to win the 2025 Classic Physique Mr. Olympia? Who will be the next new Classic Physique champion in the absence of Chris Bumstead? And I think I would say, as far as the final story that I've got for you guys today, Roelly Winklaar actually reposted one of my videos where I was talking about the Roelly Winklaar potential comeback, and he said in the repost that if you guys want this to happen, he wants more support and I guess more vocal support of him making a comeback. Now, I think this is really interesting, especially in the wake of the Masters Olympia, that he posted something like this. Now, Roelly would be 48 years old. He is 48 years old. And I think that when you look back at the last time that we saw Roelly on stage, it was back in 2021. And I was actually looking back at some of Roelly's pictures from the 2021 Mr. Olympia where he was 11th place. So that was his last Olympia showing. He was still 11th. And he would have been, I believe, about 45 years old at this time. And looking back, Roelly actually, he brought a really impressive package the last time we saw him on the Olympia stage. And I think especially viewing this in the context of the Masters Olympia, I think that had Roelly done a show like that, he would have won. I mean, the quality that Roelly had and still seems to have, that freak factor that he had, that most muscular, that was, one of the best and most musculars that I think we've seen in years. I think if he's healthy and he wants to do it and he thinks he can do it, he should make a comeback. And I guess the question is more like, to what extent does Roelly make a comeback? Does he come back and try to win an open show and get into the Open Olympia? Or is it more of a thing where maybe he watched the Masters Olympia and thought, I could come back as a Masters competitor and win a lot of these shows, probably win a Masters Olympia title? Because certainly I think had Roelly been in that Masters Olympia lineup, he would have won. Because, again, no disrespect to anybody that was in that Masters Olympia lineup, but there was no one in that lineup that we have talked about in the past as potentially winning an Open Olympia title. Roelly has been talked about several times during his career as potentially winning the Open Olympia. He was that good. So as far as, coming back as a Masters competitor, I think he would do extremely well. As far as coming back as an open bodybuilder at age 48, do I think he could win a show? Probably. Probably not one of the bigger shows, but I think he could probably still win an open show. Do I think he could still place well at the Olympia? That's a little bit harder to say in the Open Olympia because now it's getting so competitive. I don't know how he would do in Open at 48. And really, to be honest, we don't know how he's still looking. But I think if his legs are still there, he could still be very competitive as far as maybe winning an open show and competing in Masters. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.